this is something that no doubt every one of us has experienced, maybe wrestled with to one degree or another, is anger. So what role would you say that anger has played in your life? And even how do you deal with anger now compared to the way you dealt with it maybe when you're in your 20s or your 30s or whatever?
I don't know, I guess I always thought that, anger, expressing anger is inappropriate. And in atmospheres and the social environments you were in, you weren't allowed, or it just was inappropriate to express it. So what do you do with it? Because I found that I was wound pretty tight and there's a lot of things going on in my head, and then I'm not expressing it, and then it backs up and I get all these justifications, a lot of things going on. And I it's almost like passive aggressive now. You're carrying out your anger, but you're not doing it in a confrontational way. And then I was afraid of confrontation, right? So, because confrontation felt like the wrong thing to do, or I was going to act inappropriately. So then but you still have it, right? I don't know, is that y'all's experience, or were you more to fly off the handle? I would blow a gasket every once in a while.
I would fly off the handle.
Just right now, I was like, go.
Really?
0 to
Say
1,000
too
miles.
much.
Yeah.
Was it like before you even saw it coming? Did it just seem like it just overtook you, or?
I don't know about overtook me, but I just totally gave into it, and I didn't know what to do about that,
Do you think that like the ability to do that, right?
Yeah.
Is kind of like passion off the rails?
Yes, exactly. I mean, I view myself as a very passionate person, and
Justice.
oh yeah, justice. So anger is good and bad. At least it's been, I would say, having anger. Like I can think when I first got married, like my first year of marriage was probably our worst. And trying to learn and figure out, especially being a young guy. I got married when I was 19, and and so when you're talking about sex and intimacy and that kind of stuff, for a 19-year-old guy, and there was some sexual abuse that had happened in my life and in Julie's life. And so the healthiness, there wasn't health in our relationship.
A lot of unresolved stuff.
A lot of unresolved stuff. And so for me, that brought forth a whole lot of anger.
Yeah, and don't you think there's all kinds of things like that, though? I mean,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like your whole life, like people stayed out of my way. My sister stayed out of my way. My mom stayed out of my way. If I was angry, that was like that was like a get off my back type thing. And that, kind of shut it off. That was the end of it.
Yeah.
Well, that didn't work in marriage. It's like that wasn't a stopper. It was like you had to get past it.
Yeah.
You had to dial down on what was.
I remember one time I got so just frustrated and mad, I went and put my fist through a door.
I've never done anything like that.
Really?
I was ticked off thinking maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
A few chairs, but not any doors.
Right.
No.
Yeah. But learning, I guess, and this is something I had to figure out over time, and I still have to work through it today at certain times.
Yeah.
I realize when I start to feel, and maybe it's an injustice or to someone else, and I get mad about it.
Sure.
I mean, it's like me and you are doing all the talking here, but I think now when I see myself get angry,
Yeah.
like 75% of the time it's about me. It's about my problem. It's not the situation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like a flag that's like, you're off,
Yeah.
But I have to just dial it. I have to realize, and this is what I didn't do as a young man. I have to realize, okay, this is to the point where it's going to go a way that I don't want it to go. So I need to go find some quiet space or something that I can, get back into a spot where I can actually effectively communicate. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I didn't effectively communicate. Putting a fist through a door.
Yeah. Right.
Didn't resolve it.
Nope.
I think that, I don't know, looking back, I definitely, it was the classic for me, the classic psychology of behind anger was fear. And what was behind the fear was losing control. Like if I'm not in control of this situation or what I want for what I think's right, or I'm detecting I may lose control, it's slipping, that's that fear, and then the anger would come up to grab it, to fix it, to put everything, to get everybody. And I know I know, especially as a young man, I would even if I would, like, let's say I'd be in an argument with my buddies, and I remember one situation in particular. I had a buddy that I was wanting to make a point, and I just wore him down, and I don't think he ever thought I was right, but then he finally, hey, you're right.
Yeah.
But I was like, you don't think I'm right, do you? Let me tell you why I'm right.
Yes.
And he's like, no, man, you're right. But I was like, no, you're lying. You don't think I'm right. I'm going to show you why I'm right. And I would just get ramping up. And finally, he's like, you are so obtuse. And then that made me even more angry. But it was just like, I know I would be very obnoxious, because it's like, I want you to know I'm right. But there was something deep seated in there of the fear of being wrong. It just can't take the possibility of being wrong here.
Yeah.
That's a bad place to be.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of weight to carry, and to keep that building intact everywhere you go.
I'm not on the point of being right, but I was always like on a mission, going somewhere, driving at something. And if you get in the way, or you cloud the progress, you're just the devil, man. I mean, I'm going after you,
Yeah.
But I found that I would, in my head, I'm having this war in my head. But I've learned as an older person to address things, like to just have the conversation, say the direct thing that makes you nervous to say it. And I found that God gives me the grace to say things that are pretty direct, and it fixes my anger, because I would be so angry, and then I just build this case in my head until I explode on something,
Yeah.
And but just fixing it along the way has been a habit that helped me.
So in this stage of your life, in the second stage, is that happened less and less and less?
What?
These anger that
Incidents of anger?
yeah, incidents of anger.
Irritation happens all the time. I think
Right.
maybe my wife and I have learned to say some pretty sharp things to one another in grace. And we know we'll give ourselves a little room, because that's better than blowing up later. So we will say some pretty direct things, And I joke with my wife sometimes, you want to fight me right now? And we just kind of laugh a little bit.
Right.
But
I think irritation is different than anger.
maybe, but I mean,
You don't
something.
agree? You don't agree with it?
Yeah, my brain's over here cooking quite a bit. I would confess and say that my biggest, and for lack of a better word, is what they are. My biggest sins as a man have come from anger. I've never caused bodily harm, but I know I've caused emotional harm.
How big of an old
Same.
boy are you?
How big a
boy?
Yeah.
Big old boy. And you know what? Like, I may not put a hand on anything, but that kind of anger, in what you were even joking with,
You might as well hit them. I mean, it's the same.
It sends
Yeah,
a wave of fear.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't
Same.
regulate.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth saying that anger in and of itself, God wired that.
Sure.
It's not bad,
Right.
but it's my lack. Or
And there's
our
even a
lack,
verse that says, be angry,
and
sin not.
yeah, don't do harm with it.
Right.
And you said it so well a second ago. Anger is a secondary emotion. It's not a primary emotion. It's a secondary emotion, and it always has to do with the loss of control or the fear of a loss of, or the perception of a loss of control. And it's there to motivate us to get control back. And if we're not mature managing that emotion, you don't stand a prayer.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
You
There's
got
real
to train.
trouble. Yeah.
You got to practice.
You mentioned in an earlier session about, seek first to understand and then be understood. And I think sometimes, we feel like we take so many things personally that aren't personal,
Yeah.
right? I mean, like
Yes.
the situations emerge that make you angry and you take it personally.
Yeah.
And actually, it might be their struggle. There might be some healing here. There might be some
Right.
really good come from this situation if you can learn to have the right kind of confrontation.
Right.
And so I think learning to be direct with kindness, speak the truth in love type thing, learning to be direct with grace and to just say hard things is so vital for men, marriages, leaders.
Yeah.
Some of the work that has to be done, and this is kind of where I was going, is one of the quotes that's helped me so much is that we don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are.
Right.
So my anger would come from a loss of order or expectation or the inability, like I see this way it needs to go. And so then I would say, we don't see things as they are, we see them as we are, which is also a sin of certainty. There's this sense of whether it's your mission or it's being right, because boy, I
The sin of certainty.
yeah, we come to worship certainty, and it's this value.
doubt.
I'm all about confidence, and we should, but we should hold on a little more loosely to the things that we are confident in and certain of, because life is going to constantly interrupt. And I just use Jesus as an example. Every miracle in the text comes from an interruption. All the great stuff comes from interruptions.
Yeah.
But if I was ordering my life, I do not want to be interrupted over. And so much of my anger was from things that would happen I didn't want to happen, couldn't understand why it was happening.
Right.
Why is this not going according to my plan?
Right.
And you can fight that your whole life until it finally beats the living crap out of you and you surrender, because you're never going to control the world to a degree that it's going to flow the way you want it to flow.
So I'm
We gotta
stuck
get
on that,
better at
on that certainty thing. So
yeah.
like things you believe or you feel certain about, or could that also play into it? Like you don't like things to be attacked.
Well, the idea is that we just get overly attached. I would say it like this: we are not our ideas. Sometimes we have ideas and then we identify with the ideas. People do it with their emotions a lot.
Yeah.
I am my emotions. No, you're not.
Right.
And if you notice, like I just used Jesus again as an example, coming on the scene, he's inviting everyone to re-envision God. And the reason he's so rejected is because of the sin of certainty. We've already covered this. So I can't learn anything new about it. The interruption can't shift me and shape me into some fresh perspective and actually a better person. Every single thing that I was rejecting has made me a better man. Everything I was getting mad at because he wouldn't fit in my plan has made me a better man. And so I would just say, it's like you can't get so attached to your way and mode of it having to happen that you can't allow, quite truthfully, God to just interrupt that with life. I've got to get better at flowing with it and not responding to it with inappropriate anger. So anger will get you up and get you going. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's just, we got to hold on a little bit looser. Or
And I think that's what it's meant for. That's why God did put it, to get
Now,
you
do
up
you
and get
guys
you
get
going.
angry in traffic, or is this just what is that?
Oh, yeah.
I don't, but
No?
no.
What's wrong with you?
I
don't know. Why is that aggravating you so much?
I'm kind of mixed on that. But I think that I don't get near as angry as I used to.
Yeah. I don't think it's healthy, really, to be honest with you.
But part of it, though, is I think just getting into a stage of life now, I've just slowed down. It's just like,
So you're the guy I'm getting angry at now.
yeah, I doubt that.
Oh, okay.
I'm an excellent driver.
Are you?
No, what does drive me nuts, though,
Yeah.
is the people that stay in the left lane.
Yeah, or the right lane and don't know, people are merging. Can you just move over one?
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
These are things that are very important in life.
Well, traffic seems
yeah.
to me, traffic's like a microcosm of life. And I think the thing that frustrates me now is I've slowed down a lot. But it's people who, if I just go a little bit faster and pressure everyone around me, I can get there 2 more seconds
Yeah.
quicker. And it's like, do you know how much risk? At this stage of my life, I'm like, Royce, how much risk did you cause when you were that way?
Right.
But now it's just like, goodness, man, if we could get along, we'd all get there about the same time.
Yeah.
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 And that's what frustrates me now. Not to a point that I can't manage it, but when I feel irritation, it's a selfishness. And whether it's too slow or too fast,
Right.
but it's trying to make everything conform to your agenda, your schedule, your time frame.
Yeah.
What actually, I know this is stupid, but what bothers me more than the traffic
Yes.
is in a grocery store, is people that like walk up to the 10 item deal like with 12 items. That's like when the black and white prophet I mean, this is shameful. I'm counting people. I'm like, I'm Now, who do you think you are? You think you're
right.
special, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Well, when you've got, you've
it's
got
that control thing though, once again, it is.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, when you got 3 loaves of bread, that's just one item because it's all the same.
That
Did
is
you know that,
not,
Lance?
that
Yeah.
is not true. It's a category. It's
category.
3 items.
It's just one category.
It's one category. That's 3 items.
Well, to give someone our conversation, but to give someone who might be listening, a practical step with anger is how do we get a little more comfortable in not being in control in the way we might have imagined control? So if I choose to be flexible, I'm in control. I'm in a healthy control. But I have to surrender my original idea of certainty about the control I was attached to or that I wanted. But if I choose to be flexible and I choose to listen and say, all right, I'm throwing this out here. We sometimes, when interruptions happen, you watch the Lord. That's just my example, right? Is that the Lord never goes, do you not see that I'm on my way to heal somebody? I don't have time to heal you too. He doesn't do that. He's like, I can heal you and I can heal you. And so he's my example for how to manage interruption because I've always had a hard time with it. I'm an only child on top of it. So I never had to get the neural pathways of sharing with siblings and all that. So it has just hit me that just accept what I cannot control right now. Accept it happening. I don't have to like it or weigh it morally. It's happening. And when just that simple act of this is happening, I'm going to flow with it. I have chosen a control through flexibility, meaning I've chosen this path and I'm going to roll with it. Man, that one little thing has knocked the edge off of my anger trigger. 1,000-fold. I can't. And I just get better and better at going, I'm going to accept instead of fight. Now, that doesn't mean I'm rolling over or that my values or questions. I'm saying that the life situation,
Let it play out.
let it play out.
Yeah.
Yes. And then see what new thing I was unaware of could be possible.
I think most anger, I mean, like domestic violence, is a thing in the police force and, all of that. I think the things that can make you the most angry are the things closest to you, right? You can tolerate so much from so many, but it's something about the people closest to you is the place where your anger can show up the most. I think it's telling of your flaws and your humanity and your immaturity. It is also a telling of their flaws and humanity and immaturity, right? So this is the crucible where so much of anger roils. And I think you have to learn skills in that setting. Ask more questions. Pause a half a second and ask a question. We used to say, no name calling. Don't be calling people names. Deal with the topics. I mean, that's basic stuff, but don't be telling people what they are and bashing them. Deal with the topic. Say what you feel. You hurt me right now. I really feel like you're discounting me. Say it. rather than feel it and then explode and just, because it's not going to come to any resolution. And what I found when I was younger, we get in these fights, not to monologue here, but you would have these terrible fights, tears, end up hugging, forgiving one another, and now the healing happens. Well, let's just short circuit all of that and get to the healing. Yeah, get to the healing.
Right.
Because if you're frank and you say it with, grace, and you go ahead and have the same conversations, you get to the same end without the crazy.
Yes.
Right.
I think that's what you learn as you get older.
Right.
The wisdom of these years is we bypass the lie that if I express my anger, I'll get what I want. You often get the opposite of what you want. So let's just
Absolutely.
bypass that
Anger is a
whole-
control thing, isn't it?
It is.
Yes.
So let me just bypass all the actual harm I'm about to create, and let's just move to the real issue. But you've got to live a little bit to figure out where the
Right.
real.
What about gaslighting? I mean, that's a real deal in,
It's a
in
very-
relational. It's an
Yes,
anger
it is.
thing.
No deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's another way to manage control and the perception that you want to believe about yourself. So we have to surrender all that if we want to be the best men that we can possibly be. And there's good control, but we've got to see where that path actually is. It's often not in the place we think it is. No.
One thing we talked to some of our staff at our business. We have the teams of two, and we have a journeyman and an apprentice. And so one thing we to try to help people with related to frustration and angst or even anger is the impact that emotion can have on somebody, and it causes them to not hear what you're actually saying, because all they feel and see is somebody who is extremely frustrated and mad, and they want to just, like your friend, like you talked earlier, yeah, you're right.
Right.
They just want to calm the situation down. This is more than they want to deal with.
Right.
And they can't hear what you're actually trying to say. For example, use your hammer and hammer the nail this way. And if you hammer the nail this way, this is going to help you be a master with using the hammer, But if you scream and holler and throw the hammer and throw the nail and all that kind of stuff, the person at the end of the day is going to remember how that anger made them feel.
Yeah.
And that was complete chaos. And they're not going to hear how to.
They're not going to even want to learn.
Yeah. Not even want to learn.
I mean, dealing with teenagers, dealing with employees, dealing with people in your life that bring anger on you.
Yeah.
Right. As a person that is trying to lead and be right, learning that skill is important as well.
Yeah.
Like seeing through the anger. I would rather somebody be direct and angry than go around my back and do crazy.
Oh yeah.
I would rather them come right on and just,
Absolutely.
I'd rather them get me right in the face
Yeah,
with it.
I'd rather that.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I think as we mature, it's worth noting, because I had mentioned this earlier, but if we would channel our anger, and this is part of the regulating of it, we see it, we accept it, and take the control that it's trying to give us and make sure we channel that into self-control instead of circumstantial control or trying to control people or the situation. Just we feel our anger and say, I'm going to divert that energy into
How do you do that?
Going to be.
Like give me an example of what you actually do when,
For
when
me,
you're feeling
because I've sinned with anger and I've hurt people very close to me by just because and let me just say this for everyone, I was shut down. So a lot of your young abuses will still carry anger until you get healing, but it still is a layered process. I didn't have a voice. And so I might be an only child, but I was still told to shut up and just pushed away. And then all the significant leaders in my life, I never had a voice. So you're just like, you're not going to keep me quiet, anymore with what I feel. And so to answer your question back to that, with a little bit of background, is the first thing when I feel the anger is, Royce, how you respond right now and what you show on your face and what you're about to do is going to potentially cause irreparable harm because you've done it before. Now, and that sobers me that there's nothing I'm about to react to that's more important than the consequences I may leave behind if I'm not under self-control. And that is a bigger, more weightier reality for me than it's ever been. And I am in that place.
And you've
almost
got-
Zen-like control because I'm not, I refuse to do harm
To go there.
anymore.
Well, I was just gonna say, then you get in this vicious cycle.
Yeah.
Where, like, going back to the hammer with the nail, if I'm trying to train a guy that I'm working with
Yeah.
how to use a hammer and a nail, and I actually want him to get better at it, then if I just blow up and get angry, he's not ever hearing that.
Right.
And then guess what we're going to deal with tomorrow?
Yeah.
And what I hear you say is the same kind of thing. You've got to have that, you've got to develop that self-awareness to say, okay, I feel some pretty intense anger coming on right now. And for me, like, not being able, sometimes I actually need to step out of the situation and go calm down instead of responding to the anger.
That's healthy.
You know,
That's self-control too.
yeah, and then come back into it and realizing, for me, that was really helpful when I realized that, oh, this doesn't have to be addressed right now in this moment. I need to go check out for a minute, calm down so that I can effectively communicate, and I can still be direct.
Yes.
And still say, I can even say, hey, this has made me very angry. I can even say something like that. And people are going to, hear, or at least improve the chances of hearing, you know what I mean?
Well, and then as mentors and sages, it's worth noting that I don't want to cause but let me say it like this, and a form of irreparable harm is not just what happens to them when they feel my anger, but I can associate their future hammering of nails. They will do it out of fear because of the way I mentored them. And they could lose the joy of carpentry.
Yeah.
They might make a living off of it, but they can't have the joy because their mentor fused anger, terror, and fear.
Yeah, it'll always be associated with that.
And that's another thing that hits in your brain when you're like, you're frustrated, they're not learning or they're not listening, or whatever thing it could be.
Yeah.
They just want to do it their own way.
Right.
I don't want to poison the joy of what they're going to learn to do with my frustration in the process.
Right.
Yeah.
My wife brought a habit into our relationship that was like, when something hurt her, she would say, I don't want to talk about this right now.
Yeah.
This is not a conversation for right now, because that's where we would go off the rails. But when we get in another situation, maybe in the morning or something, I want to talk about this because this is, I don't feel good about this. And so it took it out of the moment, which I would have failed. She knew it.
Yep.
And so, and that became kind of one of our habits, somewhere in probably mid-course of our marriage, that we followed. We're like, we're going to address this, but not right now because we're too emotional. It's too hot. It's too hot.
Yeah, but still getting to it pretty soon without metaphorically letting the sun go down your wrath.
Yeah, and saying it.
Right.
But just by virtue of you saying it,
Right.
you've already started the process.
Right.
Now
Right.
I can't. You're
Right.
going to open
Right.
that page up. And
Yeah, because and I don't know how we stumbled along some wisdom. I think I was 22 and my wife was 19 when we got married, but we really did agree, even before we got married, that we would not let the sun go down our wrath. And I think I don't think we hardly ever broke that. I always laugh and say we stayed up really late a few times, but so many couples, they let things fester, they don't deal with it.
Right.
And then it becomes really huge, and then it blows up, and it blows up on them.
But don't you think that some things in your personality and your maturities are a long, long conversation? Like they're they just don't get resolved in a conversation.
Yeah.
Right.
One blow up and we talk about it and it's
Yeah,
over.
no.
It's like, no, this is a decade worth of.
That's a 30-minute sitcom.
Yeah.
It's what that is. Oh, well, we had this big crisis.
Right.
We fixed it. We're happy. And,
Right.
let's go out for pizza.
Yeah.
Or always laughed about my favorite Western growing up was The Rifleman. And, I love The Rifleman. He's this single dad, this widower, he's got this little boy, and every episode, he's like killing 3 or 4 people.
Sure.
But like at the end of the episode, the sweet music and the fiddle music comes on, and they're like, Mark, would you like a steak and some apple pie? Yeah, Pa. And there's like 4 dudes laying around dead. You know, it's like, and everybody is like, this is this wonderful father-son relationship. And somebody counted up one time, and I think there was like the total of all the Rifleman episodes, there was like 950 guys he killed. But he was just wholesome. Wonderful.
Because I had some
father-son.
bosses like that.
Yeah.
Wake up bodies.
Yeah. But yeah, he didn't let the son go down in his wrath. He went in and cut him down, right? You know, every episode. Crazy. So that's not what we're talking about here, are we?
No.
When we're talking about dealing with anger.
Because that's not real. You know
No,
what I'm saying? We can't
no.
have that much collateral damage and then you want some apple pie?
Yeah,
Just slaughter my whole family, you know, with my anger.
Exactly.
And something about the long-term process that just really hit me again is this willingness to redefine control. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a decade-long conversation, and I'm not always got a good handle on that, but I can get a better handle on me.
Yeah, I've been married 42 years, and there's still things, you know, I mean, we're working on. We're just,
30 for us, you know, and we're still working through things, you know, and it's we plan to continue to work through things, but
and you will.
yeah. But anger, like immature anger, is this sense of control based on how I see the world. And that's not a relationship in the first place. It's one person having all the power.
Exactly.
You heard about that, the old couple sitting on the bench, you know, and they're holding hands in the park. And they're old, and, you know, and she leans over, she says, he can't hear real well, but she says, I appreciate you. He goes, well, I hate you too. Something just never gets fixed.
And they're still together, you know? I hate you too. I hate you, Tony.
Hopefully that's not where we're headed. Guys.